Very good afternoon. Today we shall be discussing approach to thrombocytopenia. Myself Dr. Naveen Gupta. I am Associate Professor Clinical Hematology in the Department of Medical Oncology at Mahatma Gandhi Medical College and Hospital. Thrombocytopenia is a very common clinical condition that we often face, and the exact etiology and the approach to treatment is something that's very essential, particularly when the dengue and the malaria epidemic is on, when we have a lot of cases having thrombocytopenia. So what is the function of platelets? It's not merely hemostasis. It carries a wide range of functions, including immunomodulatory functions, coagulation, wound healing, the release of several granules, and it can also, they participate in certain diseases like tumor metastasis, Alzheimer's disease, and it plays an important role in immunoregulation. So although coagulopathy is the most important manifestation of low platelets, there can be other symptoms as well. So platelet addition and platelet aggregation are the two steps that ultimately lead to a thrombus formation. This is part of the primary hemostatic mechanism, and subsequently after activation of coagulation pathways, the secondary hemostasis and primary combine to form a plug. Thrombocytopenia can be classified in various ways, but this is the commonly used definition, where mild is 1 lakh to 1.5 lakhs, moderate is 50,000 to 1 lakh, and severe is less than 50,000. The etiology of thrombocytopenia can be due to three different causes. It can be either due to decreased formation, it can be due to increased destruction, or in certain cases sequestration within the spleen. These three causes are the major causes of thrombocytopenia, and all etiologies can ultimately be categorized into one of these three. So we can have a wide range of causes. In increased destruction, it can be immune or non-immune mediated destruction. In decreased production, we've got disorders involving the marrow. The bone marrow is not that functional, which is leading to thrombocytopenia, and splenic sequestration may be one of the other causes. So the clinical features, if most cases of thrombocytopenia may not show any bleeding till the thrombocytopenia has become very severe, usually below 10 to 20,000. And at those levels, we may see presence of petechial rash, we may see ecchymotic patches, we may see the presence of wet purpura on the mucosal sites. The patients may have menorrhagia, perrectal or intracranial bleeds, alveolar hemorrhages in the lungs, and there can be a peculiar symptom of fatigue as well. Panic is often a very major symptom of thrombocytopenia. Patients come in a very extremely panicky state, and they are very worried about the thrombocytopenia, so always the patient has to be counseled properly. How to approach a case with thrombocytopenia? First of all, if the patient is bleeding, then we should take a thorough history as to what is the site of bleeding, how long has the patient been bleeding, what are the associated features of underlying disease, if there is any past or similar family history, any history of any drug intake. There are several drugs which can also lead to thrombocytopenia and bleeding, and if there has been any past or current transfusions of platelets or any other blood products. Disorders of primary hemostasis are the ones which will occur due to platelet dysfunction or decrease in platelets. They will lead to early bleeds and skin and subcutaneous bleeds, whereas disorders of secondary hemostasis are due to coagulation disorders and due to defects in the coagulation pathway. They may present with a delayed bleed, and usually the bleeds are present in the deep tissues, either visceral bleeds or joint bleeds. In the clinical examination, we should always be careful to examine the wet bleeds. Wet bleeds are often a harbinger for much more serious bleeds like intracranial or hematuria or GI bleeds. The other associated symptoms of fever, pallor, lymphadenopathy, organomegaly should also be evaluated. The CBC and the peripheral blood film are the most important investigations when we are looking for thrombocytopenia. They can often give us a very good hint as to what is the underlying etiology. The CBC may be misleading, so in the absence of a PBF, always interpret it very carefully. So there can be some causes of pseudothrombocytopenia where platelet clumping, satellitism or presence of large platelets may lead to a falsely low value in the CBC when the platelet counts are actually normal. These are examples in the images. We've got platelet clumping here, we've got satellitism when they are arranged like satellites around a neutrophil, and we may have large platelets as we can see over here. Platelet indices are also very helpful. These may come in the modern cell counters. So we may have mean platelet volume. If it is high, it would indicate presence of large or giant platelets. Then presence of immature platelets indicate that there is increased production of platelets, and this would be seen in cases where there is either destruction of platelets or a recovering marrow where the platelets are expected to rise. The cause specific evaluation always includes, it always depends on the underlying etiology. Often a bone marrow examination may be needed, but if there are other etiologies, for example, dengue is suspected, then infectious disease workup. If autoimmune disorders like SLE are suspected, then autoimmune workup. So based on the underlying suspected etiology, the direction of the workup has to proceed. So some marrow findings that we can see. So in acute leukemia, we may find presence of blasts completely infiltrating the marrow. Then in case of megaloblastic anemia, we may find presence of these megaloblasts with an adequate megakaryocytes. In aplastic anemia, the biopsy will show a completely empty marrow with absence of hematopoietic precursors and largely replaced by adipocytes. In myelodysplasia, we may see features of dysplasia amongst the megakaryocytes, which are the platelet producing organelles. So these would be the various features. In ITP, we would find presence of increased megakaryocytes, which having mature as well as immature forms. There's a wide range of drugs which may cause drug-induced thrombocytopenia. So as we have already discussed, drug history is very important, and some of the commonly associated drugs like anti-epileptic medications, macrolides and beta-lactam antibiotics, these are commonly prescribed, so we should always have a look at these. One particular cause of drug-induced thrombocytopenia is HIT, heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. It is driven by an immune mechanism. There is antibody to platelet factor 4, which leads to destruction of platelets and paradoxically leads to increase in thrombosis rather than bleeding. Other causes of thrombosis with thrombocytopenia are thrombotic microangiopathies, DIC, as we have discussed, heparin-induced thrombocytopenia, and antiphospholipid syndrome. The treatment of thrombocytopenia is always the treatment of the underlying cause. We have to give platelet transfusions only to support the platelet counts, but they are not the ultimate treatment. The ultimate treatment would be the elimination of the underlying cause. So a good etiological workup brings us to an underlying cause. Treatment of that underlying cause takes care of the thrombocytopenia itself. Transfusions. So the threshold for transfusion should be very strict and very well defined. Otherwise, there is often a misuse of platelet transfusions. So if the platelets are less than 10,000 in a stable patient, platelets are less than 20,000 in a sick patient or a patient with ongoing fever, and presence of thrombocytopenia with any active bleeding, these would be the major indications for going for platelet transfusions. We can either go for RDP or SDP transfusions. RDP transfusions usually are given 1 RDP per 10 kg of patient's body weight, and SDP transfusion usually 1 SDP transfusion for an adult. SDP contain a much higher concentration of platelets as compared to RDPs. We also have TPO receptor agonists, so they stimulate the thrombopoietin receptor in the megakaryocytes and lead to increased production of platelets, and these are currently approved in use in ITP and aplastic anemia. So we've got L-Trombopag and Romiplostim, both available as generics in our country now. So it's a boon for a lot of patients with ITP and aplastic anemia. So the take-home message is always exclude pseudothrombocytopenia whenever encountered with a case of thrombocytopenia. Be careful with the evaluation of etiology. A correct etiology will give us the correct treatment. PBF and bone marrow examination are still the gold standard, and new molecular investigations are coming up, but they will not replace these old and most effective investigations. Sometimes there may be thrombocytopenia with thrombosis, not always bleeding, so that we should be careful for that as well. The use of transfusion should always be judicious. L-Trombopag and Romiplostim are a ray of hope for a lot of diseases, and do not press the panic button even if the patient is doing so. Be very careful and be very meticulous in your treatment planning and etiological workup. Thank you.